another episode of High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. I am Steve Rozenberg, as you probably already know. And this is where we talk about real life, real business, and more important, real situations. Because at the end of the day, it's not the destination, it's the journey that we're on. And whether you know it or not, you are on a journey. Some people don't realize it till the journey's over, and then they wish that maybe they would have gone back and enjoyed it and been a part of it. I can tell you personally, my journey growing up as a child and being a semi-amateur athlete, there's people that you would see and people you would look up to in the magazines and see on TV. And one of those people is sitting right here today. So I have a very good friend of mine, Lee Labrada. Lee is just an icon, and I would say probably the nicest gentleman I've ever met in the bodybuilding industry. And I know there are very nice guys, but personally, and you are one of the most accomplished bodybuilders in the history of the bodybuilding sport. And, you know, as a kid growing up, I just remember reading magazines, I'm sure you hear this often, where you would look at this sculptured physique and be like, how does that happen? How does a Lee Labrada exist? So first of all, Lee, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Steve, it's a pleasure, and thank you for the kind introduction. You've built me up more than I deserve.
No, I don't think I have. I mean, your list of accomplishments goes on, and well deserved. Obviously, we're going to go into some of these, but if you don't mind, just tell the guests a little bit about your background, your history, and who you are today.
First, I want to tell you that I really, really like the statement that you made, that it's about the journey and not the destination.
Yeah.
Because that's something that I would tell my boys growing up. Mm-hmm. You know, I've got 3 boys.
Yeah.
And I would tell them that it's the journey that makes the champion.
Right.
You know, not the destination
Sure.
itself. So that's really great advice right there. You know, so I got started in bodybuilding when I was 17 years old. Okay. You know, and I was injured playing football, and I found out pretty soon that I was a better bodybuilder than a football player. And after a few months of training, I entered a local bodybuilding show, and I got into the show. I got into shape, and when I showed up, Steve, everybody was bigger than I was. You know, and it's like I almost turned around and ran out the door, you know, but I said, you know, I've prepared, I'm going to go through with it. And when the results came back that night, surprisingly, I had won the show. And I still didn't have it figured out, but I found out that bodybuilding was just a lot more than just being the biggest guy.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, I was able to leverage paying attention to details. And that was something that I've always been able to carry through my entire life. And after that, I was hooked.
So now you've been doing this for quite a while, right? In the industry, you have one of the most well-known names in the nutrition world as well now. Let me ask you, there's a lot of people that have started off in your path, right? And going back to when you started to going back to today's industry, why do you think that some people fail where you have succeeded? Is it an attitude? Is it a recipe? Is it a drive? Like, what is it?
You know, that's a very good question, because I think that a lot of it boils down to what happens here. Yeah. You know, between your ears. You know, I mean, and you've known so many athletes yourself. You've consulted them, and you know that a lot of it boils down sometimes to the mindset of a person. You know, whether they're consistent in their training, whether they have persistence, or whether they get discouraged. You know, some veer off the path. You know, and party too much, or don't do the things that are necessary in terms of their training with their discipline and that type of thing. But something that I've had ever since I was a kid was the ability to focus on something and then just keep repetitively doing the same thing. And if you know bodybuilding, you know that it's repetitive. Yeah. You know, in fact, I can tell you it's train hard, eat right, rest, and repeat. Yeah. You know, and so if you're able to do tough things on a regular basis, you know, and just keep doing them, then I think ultimately that you have a higher probability of getting to your goal than those that don't have that discipline.
So you mentioned your sons. You have 3 sons, and one of them is a very accomplished bodybuilder.
He is.
Hunter. Yes. And my understanding, as you said, you are the only living father-son team that is correct. Has done what you guys have done.
That is correct. Now, see, I placed in the top 4 in the Mr. Olympia 7 consecutive times.
Wow, 7 times.
7 times, and that is like our Super Bowl.
Sure.
So that's like going to the Super Bowl 7 times. and 7 consecutive times.
Yeah.
And I took as high as second place, so I was ranked between number 2 and number 4 in the world at any given year during those 7 years.
Wow.
And later on, I was inducted into the IFBB Pro Bodybuilding Hall of Fame. Now, my son Hunter, when he was in college, told me that, Dad, I want to be a pro bodybuilder. And I got to tell you, I had mixed feelings about that because of how hard it is to do,
Sure.
you know, and the odds and whatnot. But Steve, it's like we've caught lightning in a bottle 2 times.
It's
you know,
amazing.
He just took 4th place in the Mr. Olympia. He's ranked top 4 in the world, just like Dad was.
Wow. Now, you had told me about a moment when he qualified on the same stage that you did.
Yes.
Can you share that?
I sure can. And so that the way that he became a professional bodybuilder was by acquiring his professional status. And to do that, he had to win the national championships,
Okay.
which were held in 2018 in Miami. Mm-hmm. And this was exactly 30 years after I won the national championships on the very same stage. And
Wow.
in fact, there was a lady there that was on the judging panel who had judged me back in the day. You know, we're both 30 years older now, and she literally turned around. She had tears in her eyes and said, "Lee, I feel like I'm seeing history repeat itself."
Wow.
Yeah, so it was a neat feeling.
That as a
Yeah.
father myself, that's
Yeah.
got to be a great feeling.
It's a great feeling, yeah.
Gosh.
It was like a deja vu for me.
I bet. Now, as far as the training techniques of when you were training and on season and off season,
Right.
how has that changed to today with technology, with being a little more understanding of the human body and what works and what doesn't?
All of those.
Okay.
You nailed it on the head. The technology and the knowledge, the exercise physiology that these young men and women know now compared to what we knew 30, 35 years ago. I mean, it's just a dramatic leap forward.
Right.
So where we were expending a lot of energy on exercises because we knew that squats were great for your legs and deadlifts were great for your back and that type of thing. These young people now have the exercise physiology know-how and the technique, and it helps to accelerate their gains. You know, and I will tell you that my son, could write a book on exercise physiology. You know, it's amazing what he knows about those, and they train a lot heavier than we ever did back in the day.
Is it heavier consistently, or is it just maximum heavy? Is it like, when I say consistency, is it like 12, 15, 20 reps, or what do you mean by heavier?
Heavier, and they in Hunter's case, he does take heavier weights and he does them for higher repetitions.
Okay.
You know, and so he does this to protect his joints and also for the mind-muscle connection to really focus on the target muscle that the exercise is targeting and whatnot.
So as an accomplished bodybuilder from maybe we'll call it the old school methodology to now the new school, was it hard for you to kind of give in to some of these new ideologies, or since you're in this business, you kind of were coming along as it came along?
It was definitely an evolution, and I have made it a point to stay abreast of the developments, you know,
Right.
because again, I think that it's important for people to take care of themselves.
Sure.
You know, and I want to be the best that I can be at my age, and so you have to stay educated, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to you, right, you have won every championship you can imagine. You've been in some amazing contests. You've got a very successful business.
Thank you.
What do you do do you do it now to get better, or do you think you do it not to be worse?
So it's always about getting better.
Right.
You know, your goals change in terms of how you approach the training that you do for your body. You know, at one time it was about putting on muscle and being able to compete and be the best in the world.
Right.
Now it's about maintaining lean muscle, keeping my body fat low, and living as long as I can, so that I can be a productive member of society, so I can contribute, because that's what motivates me now to come into my business. You know, is I know that every day I'm going out there and I'm making a difference in people's lives. I'm educating them, you know, on how to eat properly, how to exercise properly, how to stay motivated so that they can be the best that they can be at that point in their life. I'm providing them with the protein supplements that they need with our lean body shakes and whatnot. So that's what motivates me now, is just the possibility of helping people.
Okay. So now when it comes to business, right, what would you say drives like the Lee Labrada of today? Is it the same drive that you had when you first started? Like when you started the nutrition side, was it kind of to prove a point that you could be a successful business person, and now you are very successful, obviously, or was there an ulterior reason why you started the nutrition?
I think that it's a multifaceted answer. In other words, leaving professional bodybuilding and then going into the world of business, you have to take a direction.
Sure.
And I thought to myself, I have worked very hard all my life up until this point. I was 35 at the time, and I've developed this body. I've developed this following. Okay, and with the knowledge that I have, I can not only help the athletes, but I can take this and I can repackage it and I can take it to the average Joe and Jane and help them to cut through all the misinformation and learn, what it takes to get into great shape and stay in great shape for life. So that's the angle that I took with the company.
Now, maybe I'm biased, but I love the product. I love the consistency, the quality, the taste. And I'm not just saying that because you're here, I really do. Now, have you had to evolve, because you're very much regarded as an educator of the industry. You're regarded as someone who you have a brand authority of, this guy knows what he's talking about. He's been doing it for this long. He's got the proof. He's got the following. He's known that. Did it change for you to become that person, or were you always that educator trying to help?
Steve, I am what I would call a nerd. My engineering background, I've got a degree in civil engineering.
Okay.
That was where I came from. And then I found out that I was also a pretty good athlete. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so, I challenged myself as an athlete, and instead of engineering buildings and structures, I engineered my body. And then after retiring from pro bodybuilding, I wanted to go on to something else, and I knew that this was a great vector for me to take in order to build upon what I had already established. See, one of the things that I think is a mistake that people make is that they change focus too many times. They don't stay with something long enough to hit the pay dirt. Right. We all know that old story about the man that stops, just Napoleon Hill, just stops just shy, digging yep. for gold, and stops just shy of the vein of gold ore. Mm-hmm. And so I'm one of those guys that just doesn't know any better. He just picks a direction and just goes relentlessly,
sure.
Until he hits pay dirt.
Do you think of people that leave bodybuilding or leave any professional sport, mm-hmm. do you think that they get identity challenges of, okay, what do I do now?
100%. 100%. I still remember the first time that I sat at home on the day of the Mr. Olympia competition, and I felt like a fish out of water.
Right.
And it's like
last 7 years you were there.
Yeah.
Prior to that,
yeah, top of the world there, and then it's like I feel like I'm supposed to be on that stage.
Right.
And the next year, I still had the same feeling, but a little bit less. And I realized that at that point that I wasn't going to go back, but I had a wonderful opportunity to take what I had learned and help other people.
Yeah, I've always read that astronauts and Olympic athletes have a high rate of depression because once you go to the moon, or once you win an Olympic athlete, or even a Mr. Olympia,
yes,
what do? You
have to learn to shift.
Right.
Okay, because the thing is this, is that the one constant in life and in business is change.
Right.
Okay, you're always going to have change. You're always going to have new chapters, and your ability to adapt and your ability to adapt to that comfortably, because change makes people uncomfortable.
Sure.
And so you realize, you get to a point where, okay, yeah, I closed this chapter, but I've got a new chapter to go on to. Okay, it's like Dr. Seuss used to say, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened.
Yes.
Okay, and so you smile because that chapter happened, but you look forward to the next chapter, and you got to get excited about that.
It's funny. I always tell people I believe that life is like a book, and there's chapters.
That's right.
Your high school years, your college, your 20s, And I think the challenge that people have is sometimes they wait for that chapter to end badly before they close the chapter.
Right.
Or they take all the bad baggage from that chapter and bring it into the next one.
Right.
And they don't shut it off. And
Right.
I remember, we talked earlier about me selling my business, and a lot of people asked me, why'd you sell it? And I thought, you know what? It was just time.
It was time.
It was time to end that chapter and start a new chapter. And I loved every minute of it. And it was time.
And it was time. And Steve, you strike me as a creative person. And creative people just inherently know when to draw something to a close. Yeah. Okay. And then to begin something new. And I bet you're just as excited about doing your podcast and the things you're doing today.
Sitting here with you, I'm excited. Are you kidding me? So the Labrada Nutrition, what would you say is, for you, running this very large company that's very successful, what are some of your triggers that you have to get up every day and do this better than yesterday?
To me, it's a challenge to come in and to drive the beast, so to speak.
Yeah.
In other words, and every day, as you know, because you've been a very successful business person yourself, every day there's going to be some kind of a new challenge. And sometimes you're putting out a fire, but other times you're reaching for opportunities.
Right.
And so as those come along, that's what I derive excitement from. And then realizing ultimately, that I'm serving others and I'm helping other people.
What would you say are some distractions that as an entrepreneur, as well as a bodybuilder in shape, and your son?
Yes.
What are some things that you say no to make sure you block?
Well, I think that the things that you have to be careful with is losing focus.
Right.
Okay, like for instance, at one time, we had over 160 SKUs in the company. Now we have less than 60. So we went through a period where we cut SKUs, right? And we basically narrowed our focus until we decided that we were going to focus mostly on the Lean Body Ready to Drink protein shake.
Yep.
That is significant for a business owner because a lot of times you can get too many distractions. You have to know when to not chase an opportunity.
Right.
Okay, you have to know when to say no.
Now, the stuff you have, is it, you have the RTDs and very successful. It's interesting, whenever I fly around the world and I go into...
You take one with you?
I see them. I see them in the stores, and it's kind of, it's kind of weird, almost surreal when you go in there and I'm like, I know that guy. And it's just, it's kind of a cool feeling to say like, wow, that's cool that someone has been that successful. That you see them in different parts of the world and you're like, wow, that's a model that's working.
Thank you.
What would you say in the industry of whether it's nutrition, supplement, genre, what are things that you dislike about the industry?
The thing that I most dislike about the industry is deceitful marketing. And, fortunately, we are in a space where we deliver protein in very easy to use formats like the ready to drink shake.
Right.
But there's a lot of companies that come out with esoteric supplements, and with untested ingredients and whatnot, and then they make all sorts of claims. That has gotten much, much harder to do over the last 30 years. Because a lot of times FDA goes after them, or they get into litigation because they're making false marketing claims and that kind of thing. But historically, that's been the thing that that I hate the most about the industry. But we're seeing so little of it now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just diminished tremendously.
Well, we have a mutual friend, Keith Klein, and I remember he would show me the labels of how misleading something you read.
Oh,
and I was just shocked when he showed me, like, blatantly, if you really did the math and calculated what they're saying.
Yes.
And you're like, how is this even legal?
The food industry is a different matter altogether. They still do this kind of thing, because they're allowed to claim certain things on nutrition facts panels.
Right.
And one of the most important things you can learn to do, which is one of the things that we learned from Keith, is calculate the percent fat.
Yes.
In other words, don't go by low fat, it's only got 3 grams of fat. Yeah, but the product's got 30 calories in it, and it's got 3 grams of fat. 3 times 9 calories per gram is 27 calories. Out of the 30 are coming from fat.
Exactly.
That's a high-fat product.
Right.
Okay. So anyway, you have to read the labels, and you have to understand that there's still marketing shenanigans when it comes to food, but you're seeing less and less of it.
So I don't know if this is a correct number, but I had heard that the nutrition supplement is a multi-billion-dollar a year industry, and I don't know if that's a true number or not. But yet, it seems like the society as a whole is less and less healthy. Why is that, in your opinion?
Well, I think because people are just not willing to do the things on a day-to-day basis that require a little bit of discipline in taking care of yourself. And you know that if you invest in yourself today, if you invest in your health by eating right, maybe passing up that greasy cheeseburger and having a leaner option, maybe having a salad today and a piece of fruit instead of a bowl of ice cream. People don't like to pass up instant gratification.
Right.
Okay, but as you already know, in anything that's worth achieving, you have to have the ability to put off the gratification, or at least use moderation, because it will compound either in a positive or a negative way where your health is concerned over time.
Is it, it sounds so simplistic the way you say it. Is it really that simple as the sum of the parts?
I think it's very easy, actually, people get overwhelmed because, I think that they start with unrealistic expectations. So I have people that come to me and go, it's like, I want to lose 40 pounds. And the first thing I ask them is, well, how long did it take you to gain those 40 pounds? I go, well, I guess since I was 18, how old are you now? I'm 38. It took you 20 years. Okay, you're not going to undo it in 2 months.
Right.
Okay, you're going to need to take some time to do it. Set aside, say, a year, or 18 months, and let's put together a plan for you. Right. That will help you to get it off in stages, and in a way that fits into your lifestyle, because you have to develop new habits, right? And if those habits aren't there, if those correct eating habits are not there, then you'll fail. And that's why a lot of people fail on diets.
Well, and I think what I would say is it's the mindset of them. And I remember reading something. If you tell yourself you're on a diet, you're really saying that you're an overweight person doing something that's not you.
Right.
So it's your identity. You have to change. I mean, this may be a little deeper than what we're talking about, but you actually have to change how you think about yourself.
100%. And you have to change the habits that are associated with that. Developing a fitness habit, is as simple as deciding that you're going to exercise, but doing it in a manner that it fits into your schedule and something that you can stick with. If you only got 5 minutes, fine, but start there and be consistent with it, right? I wanted just to bring this up because you just jogged the thought. One of the best books I've ever read on establishing habits is a book called Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
It is a good book.
It's you really get a lot of aha moments. And in terms of figuring out what makes habits.
Well, and the Atomic Habits. What's interesting about that book and several other books, it's not super complicated. It's really just changing your daily functioning habits of being, very much focused, directional, having intention. Like you had said earlier in the beginning, working out and even running a business is not supposed to be this jarring excursion from one side to the other. It's actually pretty mundane.
Yes. Blocking and tackling.
Yeah, exactly. It's the basics. You go to the gym, it's really the basics. And, people ask me, for all my years of what do you do? I'm like, I do kind of the same thing. I get up and I go. I may change the things I'm doing.
Sure.
But who I am hasn't changed. And I tell people it's like a fish doesn't know it's in water.
Right.
I don't, the only way I know I'm not feeling right is if I'm not in the gym.
Right.
It's not going to the gym that's the question. It's not being in the gym that's the question. And so again, it's just a different perspective, I guess, of how I was raised and the mindset. And I personally think that a lot of my success is tied to my determination of going to the gym. And I tell people, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, not because I want to, because that's what you do.
Right.
It's not a choice. I don't do it because I want to get up. I do it because that's what time allots me.
Right.
And that's what it takes to get the job done.
And you've associated a reward with that. In other words, it's rewarding to you because you see the level of fitness that you've been able to accomplish. You're in great condition.
Thank you.
And so I think it's important for people to have feedback. Yeah. Positive feedback on whatever it is that they're doing.
Right.
And they can be small wins along the way, but it reinforces the habits.
What advice would you say is some, from the days you started off to now, is there any advice that you've gotten that's just kind of stuck with you that is your mantra or something that you always live by?
100%. My father used to tell me, when you get up, you put one foot in front of the other, and you just keep going. And that's always served me well in good times. It tells me to not rest on my laurels. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other and making progress. In bad times, it tells me not to get down on myself or get down on the problem, but just focus on working towards the goal. Put one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward.
Nice. Do you think people in business, do you think they focus more on the problem and not the solution?
I think that it's human nature, to blow problems out of proportion. And I think that until you develop the capability of setting aside the emotional attachment to a problem, then you're going to be stuck because you're not going to be thinking about the solution. You're just going to be in a panic mode. So you have an issue that comes up, and then you have to be able to detach yourself from that and say, okay, this is the problem. Okay, now what am I going to do about it? Okay, well, I can sit here and cry in my soup.
Right.
I can sit here and let my blood pressure go up.
Yeah.
I can go do something dumb, but you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to make a list of what actions can I take right now to address this. How can it be solved? And then you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to focus on that, and I'm going to take action on that. I'm going to put one foot in front of the next and work on that list.
It's funny you say that because I used to always, when I had my business, I used to always tell people, never bring an emotion into a business situation. Mm-hmm. A knee-jerk reaction.
I've heard you say that.
Yeah, and to me, it's I've never heard someone say, "I'm glad I did that." I've never heard that said. Like, I'm glad I said what I said, or I did that in the heat of passion.
Right.
Most people go, probably shouldn't have said that, or done that, or made that decision.
That's right.
And so a lot of times, I think sometimes detaching.
You're right.
I've done some conversations with some special ops people and had them on my show, and very obviously intelligent gentlemen and very successful in what they do. And they say one of the best things you can do is detach and just look at it from that 30,000 foot perspective and give it that view to where you're out of the weeds. And I always think about that when I talk to successful people. They all kind of say the same thing, like, take action, but take the right action, and make sure it's focused, but make sure it's not emotional.
That's right.
So what would you say is next for you? Right, you've got your son is just killing it in the bodybuilding world. You've got a great business. What do you do next?
Steve, my and I'm gonna talk a little bit about my faith. But my goal for the rest of my life. I feel like I'm in the third quarter. I'm 62 years old, and if you break it up into quarters, each quarter lasting 20 years, I'm in the fourth quarter of the football game, so to speak. Yeah. And I got to finish strong, okay? Yeah. I can't rest on my laurels.
Yeah.
So God willing, if I get another 20 years, I want to serve God. I want to serve other people. I want to encourage people. I want to create, opportunities for people. And I want to grow Labrada Nutrition into the #1 protein shake company in the world. I want to see my son win the Mr. Olympia. I got lots of things to be excited about.
Yeah, that's great. Now, are the other sons in it like Hunter is?
Now, the other two are into different things, and so the middle boy is going into the MBA program at Texas A&M, and so he's got a marketing background from UT.
Nice.
And so he's not a bodybuilder. The youngest one is an aspiring classic bodybuilder.
Great. So I got two final questions for you.
Yes.
The first one is when you're in the final minutes of your fourth quarter.
Yep.
And people are talking about you. What would you want them to say? Lee Labrada is best known for X.
I would like to be remembered. Sometimes we don't have a choice on how we're remembered.
True.
But our actions will dictate, a lot of times how people feel about us, And I would like to be remembered as somebody who was a giver, somebody who gave encouragement, somebody who created opportunities for other people, somebody who created, access to great education and great products, and somebody that was able to grow a great family and a great family legacy.
That's great. Last question. If you could sit down with anybody, whether they're real or imaginary or alive or dead, and have a water, wine, cocktail, whatever it is, who would you talk to, and what would the conversation be about?
That would be very easy. It would be Jesus Christ.
Okay, what would you talk about?
And talk about creation, talk about what's next, you know, I mean, it would just be incredible.
Yeah, I think I hear that a lot. I've heard a lot of different names, but you know, a lot of people are want to know more about what they were thinking. What were they? What at the time? What were they? Who were they? Were they the person that they? And not just Jesus Christ, but a lot of people. And I always find it interesting what people say. He's probably one of the highest person that I hear.
Right.
But believe it or not, I've even heard people like Adolf Hitler just
Sure.
to understand how not what he did, of course, but.
No.
But the fact that he was able to move so many people,
right,
and be able to get people behind a movement, and there's just people in history, whether they were, you know, I'm not talking about what they did and the ill that they caused, but just how they're able to get so many people behind them,
right,
and what that causes.
How impactful are they, whether positive or negative?
Exactly,
right,
exactly. Well, Lee, thank you so much for your time, man.
Steve,
it's been an honor,
awesome,
man.
Yeah,
I can't say you much.
This is great.
Yeah, again, you've been an inspiration to me as a little kid, growing up and seeing you in the magazines, and I've got to meet you several times, and having you on here on the podcast and people learning more about you and more about the drinks and everything that you have going on, which I have to say are probably the best out there in the industry. So if you haven't had a chance, make sure that you give them a try, because they're definitely top notch, top quality too. So on behalf of Lee Labrada, myself, just want to thank everyone for watching High Stakes with Steve Rozenberg. And again, this was a special in-person interview. We'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you very much, everybody.